Hey everyone, and welcome to your starter project example Java tutorial. So in this tutorial, we're going to be going over the beginner code or the boilerplate code that you get when you start a .java file in a project in Codiva IDE. So I've already started a new project and I've created this starter example.java file. And when you do that, Codiva creates this kind of starter example for you. And so I've named mine starter example, but yours will have whatever name you entered for its file name and then for the class name up here. So we'll just go through this line by line and explain each line, and hopefully this makes you feel a little bit more comfortable with Java and this boilerplate code. So let's start with line 1 here is empty, so kind of self-explanatory. Line 2 here is it's just creating our class, which is sort of like a blueprint for objects. So our class here, and then the class name, which is starter example, and this open curly braces, which is the beginning of the declaration of our class. So we're going to get into classes later on in this tutorial, so we're not going to get too deep into them here, but just know that this open curly brace here starts our class, and then this closed curly brace down here ends our class. So everything between these two curly braces is the contents of our class. So moving on to line 3, we have our public static void main function. So now what a public function is means that a public function is a function that can be accessed outside of the class it exists in. Static means that it's on the level of the class. So anytime you don't have to instantiate starter example to access a static method. And void means that the function does not return anything. We're going to get into all of this stuff later, but I just wanted to give you a brief example. If you don't understand everything I just said, no problem. We're going to talk about all of this stuff later. Next is the function name. And so that's the human readable name of the function. And this function is called main. This is the main function in Java is sort of like the entry point into the program. This is the same with a lot of other languages too. So our main function here is the entry point. And next is our open and closed parentheses here. And this is where the parameters for our program will go, or the arguments. And so our main function here takes an array of strings. So this is a string, which is a data type in Java that can contain alphanumeric characters as well as special characters. And it's an array, meaning sort of like a list of strings. The name of this parameter is args, and you can access this args parameter inside of our function here. Next is the open curly brace, which it defines the scope for our function. So just as the class's open curly brace defined the beginning of our class, this function's curly brace, right, defines the beginning of our function. So inside of our function, which begins here and ends here, inside of our function, there's just one instruction, and that instruction is the system.out.println or println hello Codiva. So if we run our program here, we will see in a moment hello Codiva output in the console. So what we can do is if we change this to say hello Pete, and then we run it again, we can see it says hello Pete. So what might be self-explanatory here is this system.out.println prints out a string, which happens to be hello Pete, to the console. And so Um, after our instruction, we close the scope, and then after we close the scope of the main function, we then close the scope of our class as well. And that ends our boilerplate code. So that's sort of a line-by-line example of what you get out of the box when you start a .java file with Codiva. I hope this gives you a little bit more confidence when you're beginning these projects, so that you can know that when you start a file, this is what you get, and you kind of understand it a little bit better. And I hope that gives you confidence in writing your own code, that you understand what exists. Awesome. Well, I hope this helps, and thanks.